Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever the fuck you're tuning in. This is another episode of Backyard Blitz brought to you by Backyard Sports. As you can see, the adult supervision is not around, so you've got us two hooligans to deal with this week. Andy, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I mean, mom's out. The refrigerator is on fucking locked, baby.
I like the hashtag, by the way. Let's chat a little bit about that, and we're not going to go to the lengths that Will Compton went because he towed a lot of lines with his fun little spiel about what Richard Mendenhall said. But what nonsense! And also ran in the history of the game is coming out and like throwing around like racially motivated things like all the white talking heads. Like stop with that nonsense, right? They're talking heads. But then he says like that we'll assemble an all black and an all white team and yada yada yada, right? Basically just discounting the fact that like there've been great players from all walks of life in the NFL. There's one position though that if we matched up, if we were really to truly match up an all black versus an all white team, there's one position that the all white team would really, really struggle in because it has been almost exactly 21 years since the last time a white player suited up and started a game at the cornerback position. Now, that player was really good. Jason Sehorn was a very, very good cornerback in the NFL. In fact, he was Michael Irvin's kryptonite. If you've ever watched the Fox, or not Fox, the NFL Network show, they blast him all the time about the fact that Jason Sehorn has really, really good career numbers against Michael Irvin. If we could get Sehorn to unretire, maybe we'd be able to stem the tide of the passing game. But I believe he's like 51 now, or 48 or 51, something like that now. So I don't know that he's going to really level the scales for the white team at cornerback. But
yeah, I think the only logical thing to do would be to get some of these white receivers to play
corner.
DB. I mean,
yeah. Compton said McCaffrey would have to play both ways, so he'd be playing safety and running back.
I mean, I think the safeties would be fine, but there's some. You know, I saw some things like we get Julian Edelman out of retirement. He can play. I mean, listen, there's probably some validity to wide receivers being able to play cornerback. We often, watch a cornerback drop a football and we say that's why
he plays corner.
My hashtag just refers to CTE. Free my man.
Yeah.
Because he has it. It's a weird fucking thing to say. I don't know. Like, it's just listen.
He closed it by saying, "I'm better than your GOAT." Like, it's clear he realizes he's not great, but also like you're not better than the current best white running back at your own position. You're not better than Christian McCaffrey. Never were.
I mean, listen, and here's the thing: as far as running back goes, in general, I don't think you'd get a person to put him in their top 50. So,
right.
There's that. But like, listen, sometimes like these are the people who are out there, right, in life. It doesn't matter like what station they have. I say it all the time. Like, it can be the guy that's like giving you the fucking milkshake at McDonald's. It can be a fucking firefighter. It can be a fucking politician, whoever. It's like some people ain't shit. And, Rashad Mendenhall kind of showing us he isn't shit.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the dude. Probably does have fucking brain damage. I don't know.
Probably.
To just that is so fucking out of bounds.
It is.
It's a weird thing to come up with. I don't even know where it started for him, but just move along, pal.
Yeah. Anyway, onward and upward. Week 15. We didn't have a show last week, so we don't have the picks to track. But we start with
all my teams won.
Yeah, I got them all right too.
Yeah.
We went 100 for 100 last week.
Pretty sick.
Started out with the straw that finally broke the camel's back. And if you don't know what I mean, we've been talking a lot on this show and in our group chat that we talk about football in the show. We've been talking for a long time about like, how does Brandon Staley still have a job, right? There's been the embarrassing playoff loss. There's been the timeout thing with the Raiders that eliminated them from the playoffs. There's been a number of things, the leaving guys in too long and they get hurt all the fucking time, going for 2 when he shouldn't, going on 4th down when he shouldn't. Like, there's just been a litany of things that have added up to, like, all of us, at least internal to the Backyard Sports family here, wondering how he keeps his job. Well, the Raiders did the deed for everybody who was concerned. Hung 63 on the Chargers. This game was over before it started, man. It was like 28 out the gate in the first quarter. They had 42, I believe, at half. Finished the game with 63. The Chargers put a couple of touchdowns up late, but it just kept getting worse, man. It was bad.
Yeah, no, listen, we've all known it, right? I thought that the straw, and you said the straw, there's a cinder block, right? So, I mean, we said it last year. We had a pretty lengthy discussion about like how does that playoff game not cost him his job? Trevor Lawrence was as bad as a quarterback could be in the first half of a football game. And, obviously you have to play all 4 quarters, but you have, Austin Eckler, who may not be the most get it done on the ground guy, but he's still a well above average running back, and they didn't run the ball at all. They just were like, no. And, they rode with him. And that speaks to everything. That's why the GM's gone to, because I had people like, well, maybe the GM's not the problem. Well, listen, he watched this shit go on. He sat on his hands. That's his job. Unless, somebody above him was in love with Staley, like I don't know. I know some situations have the president and GM all in one. I don't know what it is there in LA. But that's your job, man. Like, you have to, manage the people below you. And clearly Staley was getting away with too much. And unfortunately with a really good, exciting roster in a lot of aspects. So the big question, I think, is where do they go now?
Yeah. Bill Belichick? Are they going to retread him?
I don't mean coaching. I mean like the shebang. What they have their quarterback, but what else?
It looks a lot this year like Eckler might be washed, so they're going to probably have to reload at running back. A wide receiver, Mike Williams can't stay on the field. Yeah, no, you're right. And Keenan Allen's a year older. Defensively, they got a lot of guys that they've spent a lot of money on, and they can't.
And Keenan Allen probably costs too much money, regardless of how good he is. Like, if you're trying, because you got to think you're 2 or 3 years away now, right?
Yeah.
Best case.
Yeah. Where's
Keenan Allen in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think Tom Brady brought up a lot of this too, right? The coaching issues, the mediocrity. It is weird. It's a weird time in the NFL, right? We've got what feels like a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots, but like the haves aren't great this year. It's weird, and we're going to talk about a couple of those teams here later on who took bad L's this week, and a couple of teams that were struggling that got good wins. And it's been a weird year.
My thing though is are we watered down or are we even keeled in a sense?
Because maybe the NFL's long-term effort at parity is finally paying off. That's what the draft is intended for, and the salary cap is intended for parity.
When I look at scenarios like, and I'll speak to the Lions real quick because I'm a Lions fan. Like, you're talking a 10-win team who hasn't clinched a playoff spot, but can clinch the division if they win any of their next 3 games.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not what we're looking for, I don't know what is. So
100%. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It might just kind of be what the league wants, is like any given team, any given Sunday, for sure. One question for you. So there's been rumors that the Raiders are potentially looking to kick the tires on John Gruden again if he drops his lawsuit. Why the fuck they already missed once with letting Rich Bisaccia out the door, who I think did a great job as interim coach there when he had the opportunity. Now they've got another opportunity with an interim coach who's having success with a bad roster, right? Let's not kid ourselves and say that the Raiders are a good roster. Antonio Pierce has got them playing much better football than Josh McDaniels ever had them playing, but also much better football than they should be playing. What is it? Just the Raiders being the Raiders?
I mean, I think we should ask Rashad Mendenhall what he thinks.
I feel like Antonio Pierce is just the obvious answer. Like, what are we doing?
Ask Brian Flores. I don't know. I mean, I do too. Yeah. And he's one of those guys like he's kind of like a Dan Campbell, isn't he? In a sense, like I hate to always go to Detroit.
Emotional,
players
guy, former player,
And we saw it with Dan Campbell too in Miami, right? He was their interim, and everybody liked him, and they didn't keep him. So maybe I never know what's going through like a billionaire's head. Like I have no idea. So we all, I think collectively, not just you and I think that Pierce is probably the answer. We're kicking the tires on John Gruden is the craziest fucking thing in the world.
What are you doing?
Like, even if you don't have a good interim coach in place, like that to
that's
me
is not the tires to kick.
Right. Yeah. That's like the fucking house that has the van with no windows. Like, you don't stop there on Halloween. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's a weird fucking scenario.
Very, very. All right. Well, moving on from the embarrassment of Thursday night that the Chargers were subject to, and Friday morning, Brandon Staley found himself on the unemployment line. The Vikings and the Bengals play a really tight nip-tuck game, and this is two teams both dealing with missing their starting quarterback, and not just missing a starting quarterback, missing the starting quarterback for these two teams. Joe Burrow obviously goes without saying for the Bengals, right? But Kirk Cousins, however you feel about his first 12 years in the league, was the MVP of the league at the time when he got hurt. He was going to win it, and he was going to win it going away. He was on pace to break passing records, both yardage and touchdowns. Justin Jefferson was on pace to make ridiculous noise before his injury, and Kirk had them playing just as good offensively after Jefferson went down from a points per game perspective as they were with Jefferson. Then Cousins goes down, and they bring in Dobbs, and they have a little bit of success there. Seems like they've kind of regressed back to the mean, while Jake Browning seems to have maybe figured it out here in Cincinnati. What a job I think they've done on that side, and they get a big win here because that AFC playoff race for the wild card is congested. We've got 8 teams, I believe, in the AFC that are either 7, 8, or 9 win teams.
Yeah.
And the wild card race is clogged because you've got 3 10-win teams leading divisions, right? In the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Dolphins. And then you've got the Jags leading a fairly bad NFC South, but the Texans are right in the hunt. This is a clogged AFC, and this is a big win for the Bengals. And I like what I've seen from Jake Browning. I know we made jokes earlier in the season. I was kind of leading the charge on the jokes about, like, if you could name me the backup for the Bengals, I doubt his parents can even name the backup for the Bengals. But he's played well, and he had a big outburst. We mentioned Cousins a moment ago, but he had his you like that moment, right, where he said, "You shouldn't have fucking cut me," because the Vikings cut him a couple of years ago.
Right.
And then you find out afterwards in the worst kind of way too. They had him hang out in a hotel room and said, "We'll let you know if we're going to bring you back on the practice squad." And then never reached out to him. His agent got a hold of him 3 hours after he got to the hotel and was like, "Yeah, it's probably not going to happen." So a little bit of a revenge game for a guy who's bounced around the league a little bit. But man, the Bengals are playing good football right now, no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a couple things to unpack here talking about. I know you were exploding with the Kirk Cousins praise over there. They were 0-3 real early in the season.
They were on a winning streak before he got hurt.
Yeah, but they were getting their asses kicked by some bad teams early. So fuck the Vikings, man. So I appreciate the Bengals though. For the North's sake. Keep getting wins there. Yeah, Browning looks good, man. I do want to dead this because I'm sure you've probably seen it too. And if you haven't, lucky you. But I've seen the what are they gonna do when they have to make a choice?
Ain't
now?
no goddamn quarterback controversy in
Right.
Cincinnati.
It's so weird, dude. Like anybody who says that,
if anything, they'll go get a 5th or 6th round pick for Jake Browning and move on, right?
you
But
sound like
the truth
Rashad.
is they've got their backup quarterback probably for the next 6 years.
Right. And then we saw a team like Minnesota who did go out and get a guy who was playing really hot, and now where's Dobbs?
Right. It worked for a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, he got fucking Jefferson hurt. I mean, they were like, we're enough of this shit. And, you know, I mean, now Nick Mullins, I mean, you know, the 300-yard game, couple touchdowns. He had a couple turnovers. You know, film is a big thing. Guys, we talk about this a lot. I need to see it. But a very entertaining game. I mean, this was a game that I almost didn't watch because I don't want to see that. But, like, then it turns out to be a very entertaining game. Yeah, I mean, two teams looking to get into the playoffs, right? I mean, we came in this year being like the AFC is hot. Yeah. And the AFC has been a bit of a letdown at the top. But some of these teams, like, you know, you've got teams like the Browns and
the Texans,
the Steelers for a while, the Texans, right? The Colts are overachieving. We have all these weird teams that we didn't expect. The Cincinnati without Burrow is crazy. Right. So, you know, I mean, this division, you know, and then you have like the Jags, who are like a hot and cold team. You know, everybody expect them to just run away with the division. They're ready to finally do it this year, but they lose some bad games. So it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs look very gettable. I mean,
they look terrible for long stretches of games.
Like who were, you know, collectively, again, we can't speak for Raul, but I think I know he picked Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Right? I picked the Chiefs. I don't remember who you picked.
I picked Cincinnati.
Like, and you even throw Buffalo into that mix because they've been the other reliable AFC team, and none of those teams look great. We have Baltimore, who looks, I think I picked them as a wild card. I don't know what you guys did, but
I had them as a wild card team, yeah.
Baltimore looks like the best team, but still not untouchable. We have a weird AFC.
The playoffs could be fun in that.
We have a weird NFC too. I mean, really.
Yeah, the NFC I think is deeper than I thought it was going to be. I thought the NFC was going to be super top heavy, and it was just going to be 3, maybe 4 teams, and they were just going to kind of run away, and then we were going to see like a scramble for those wild card spots. Yeah. But I think because of and it may be the same thing as the AFC, right? Maybe they're just not that good at the top in the NFC either. And teams like Philly and Dallas, you feel like they're starting to kind of separate themselves, and then they give a couple games away, right? And they're kind of coming back to the pack. You've voiced your concerns with the Lions as well, right? Are they a team that's going to disappear on the rest of the NFC? Probably not, right?
I don't know what their deal is either anymore, because like they go from looking, you know, good against teams they should look good against, and then they look really bad against teams they shouldn't. And now, like, they just look like a really good team against Denver.
And they go from looking like a smash bag of dicks against Chicago to dominating Denver, who was one of the hottest teams in football.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they looked like a smash bag of dicks against Chicago, the
Green Bay
Saints, even though they won.
Yeah.
And Green Bay.
Yeah.
And then they come out and just like make Denver look bad. So like I don't know. I have no idea. In San Fran, even too, we saw them lose 3 games, right? Like, it was a 3 in a row.
Now they've won 4 in a row since then.
Right. We're in a I think, again, I don't want to give like much thought to like what Brady was saying, because I think his take is a little weird, but I think we are more even than we have been in a very long time. Like,
and he said like there's a lot of mediocrity, and maybe the right word is parity as opposed to mediocrity. Maybe everybody's on a you said it, level playing field, right? And you know, my dad makes a point here too, right? It is becoming more of a week-to-week league than I think we've seen in a long time, right? I don't remember ever in my lifetime feeling like every team is gettable. Because you mentioned Baltimore, and they most of the time they look like the best team in football, right? But then they go and give up 38 points to Indy and lose to Indy, and then we're like, well, is Indy really good? And then they go and lose to like Tennessee, and you're like, well, maybe they're not good. Is Tennessee good? We just don't know from week to week who's a good football team and who's not. It's exciting. I will certainly say that. And I think the point you made about maybe this is what the NFL was looking for, it's probably right that this is what the NFL wants the league to be. They love their darlings. Don't get me wrong. It's all marketable material. But when you have fans tuning in week to week, not knowing, right, that there's a destination and for this trip, right, a predetermined, quote unquote, outcome, it's exciting. It's exciting to know that the Browns can play with the fucking Joe Flacco and go win football.
Right. I mean, more so than the NFL. I mean, I think that they want it too, but I think as fans we want it, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I've been screaming for well over a decade about parity in the NBA to the point where, you know, I wanted to. Listen. 10 years ago, I was all about taking some teams away in the NBA because of the markets, the big markets winning constantly. And I don't think I ever really got that far in the NFL, but the parity is a good thing because at
Yep.
the end of the day, these are all professional teams.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the exception of a few, you know, Carolina, I see you, but they won too.
Right.
Like we want to see teams be able to go out there and get it. Nobody wants to see, besides like a fan of the team, nobody wants to see New England just control the league for 10 years.
Sure. If you're a Patriots fan, it's great.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, speaking of some of those teams that we've seen kind of up and down from week to week, Pittsburgh lays another egg this week. It's clear they have real problems at the quarterback position. I think there was a time when people thought Kenny Pickett had an opportunity to maybe assert himself and be the answer there at quarterback. He's not. Also, he's hurt now, and they've got Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Gardner Minshew is just fun to watch. You never know what you're going to get from him. But the Colts are getting some good out of him. And a team that, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have picked to win more than 5 games this year is right in the thick of it in the AFC playoff picture in the Colts. And they laid it on the Steelers a bit this weekend. Man, what are your takeaways from this? Are we mostly just kind of playoff seeding? This is what we're seeing in the AFC.
I mean, shout out to the Colts. Just a team that's, and you know, it's not like
no Jonathan Taylor too.
We didn't expect them to do it with Taylor and with Richardson, right?
Right.
So now that it's Minshew and it's Moss,
Zach Moss, yeah.
And Moss has been doing it all year. I mean, he had the big stretch without Taylor, and then Taylor comes back, and Taylor finally starts to look like Taylor again, and then he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And they're still they're doing it. They go away from, you know, their most important franchise player over the last, you know, several years, and they keep ticking, man. It's a well-coached team. It really is.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts. So we had the scary moment with DeMonte KZ and leveling Michael Pittman, right? And I'm going to preface this with the optics are bad, and I understand that the optics are bad. However, I want to get your thoughts because I saw the replay again on Monday and a couple more times as like the day went on because people were sharing it and talking about it and whatnot. But do you think that was a dirty hit?
No.
I don't either.
Not at all.
I get the real died, and I was like, it's a big deal. But like, he hit him in the chest for one, led with his shoulder for two. And if Minshew doesn't throw a shit ball, he doesn't have to dive, and he doesn't get folded up like a pretzel.
So in real time, Jen and I were watching the game, and I was like, "Oh, you can't fucking go in there like Angry Birds," because that's what it looked like happened in real time. Yeah. It looked like Vontez helmet leading.
He went yellow bird on him.
That's right. Bingo. Yellow fucking birds. Hulk smash.
Sprint guy.
Just straight through it. That's what it looked like to me. But as soon as I saw the replay, I was like, you didn't do that at all. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, I will give this to the league. The helmet does glance the face mask.
Sure.
And the shoulder does end up hitting his helmet, which I get. I get those things. That doesn't warrant an ejection from the game, let alone a fucking season. Like, he's suspended now. That's crazy. Yeah. I don't understand either of those things. To me, Pittman's landed worse than the hit did to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm fully on board with the penalty. even though it wasn't malicious, the helmet does hit the face mask coming through. Whatever, that's fine. Hand's part of the ball, right? Face mask is part of the helmet. And that shoulder does kind of end up square on the helmet. But like, I mean, to throw a guy out of a game is bad enough, but to like follow through with this, like, oh, we kind of got it wrong, let's fucking dig in and make things worse. That's pretty bad. It's terrible.
I understand from the league's perspective that KZ, he does have a reputation, right? He's got a history. He's got a number of penalized hits. He's got a number of, quote unquote malicious plays. He's not a dirty player, I don't think. I think he just brings the lumber, right? And in today's sport, in today's NFL, there's not a lot of room for bringing the lumber because you have to be so precise, right? You have to hit in a very small hit box. You can't go high, can't go low, can't go left, can't go right. You've got to basically hit him the number plate.
Drop your hips.
Yeah, you got it. Exactly. That's basically the only option you have. But I would challenge the league to understand what goes into that play, right? And I know they don't care because it's all about optics. It's all about fans were worried because Pittman basically was, I shouldn't say dead because we experienced something like that, but like it was bad and he was hurt, right? However, in that moment, you've got a player moving full speed in one direction, a player moving full speed in another direction. Where that ball's trajectory is and where KZ ends up hitting Pittman, he would have hit him in the ribs if Minshew didn't throw a ball too far that Pittman had to dive for. If Pittman catches that ball normally standing up, he's hit in the flak jacket, basically. And that's where the league wants him to hit. Now, if you're going to penalize him and then eject him and then double down and suspend him, what are you asking these defensive players to do? Because in that split second, I'm quick to defend players. I'm quick to also call players out for like dirty plays. This is not a dirty play. He is in the hit box that they're asking him to be in if Pittman doesn't dive. And there's no chance that KZ knows when he turns his shoulder to lead with the shoulder that the NFL asks him to, that he's going to be able to see Pittman dive and then react and change his trajectory. There's just no chance.
Well, there's also no chance that he's not going to try to break up a play because that's the only thing that's going to stop that from happening. Somebody just said it. There was a running back that just
was folded in half, but it also wasn't a dirty hit, I don't think.
He was folded in half, but it's not the fault of the defensive player.
Right,
I mean, he may have caused it or helped cause it, but a running back just said, and I forget who it was, he just said like the week before, lowering the helmet and got penalized. I don't remember who it was, but he said, "What do you want me to do? Let him tackle me?" I mean, we're kind of to a point again where it's like, I understand that these injuries are real and CTE is real, but like this is how this game is played.
Yeah.
And there's not a player alive right now that doesn't know that this is the way this game is played. And I'm not saying I want anybody to be walking around as a vegetable at 40 years old. However, you can't have one thing like that. This is football.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to. I know these extra regular. Oh Jesus, Laporta. Yeah, it's a mess, man. I mean, shout out to Pittman though, but fuck.
It's partially this, right? And I'm gonna bring up from the Dallas game as well. Dak got hit in the Dallas game, so he had two penalties when he slid. Well, one when he slid and got hit. I'm fine with that penalty when he actually slid. The second one that they threw on, I forget who the Bills player was, but he didn't slide. He's not sliding when he gets hit. He also doesn't get like malicious contact to the helmet. We're asking these defensive players to just do too much. These quarterbacks are waiting to the absolute last possible minute because they want to get the most yards possible, yada, yada, yada. We are just asking too much of it. Ben, defenseless receiver protects against like contact to the head and neck area and to the legs, right? The argument we're making is that is only only applicable in this situation because of a bad throw by the quarterback and the wide receiver lays out. In a normal situation, where he hits Pittman would be in the ribs. So defenseless receiver does not apply for that hitbox, right? Whatever they want to call it. It doesn't apply for that. It applies for head, neck contact, and it applies for below the knees, basically. So
but
that's the only argument that I'm making is that in a normal scenario, that's not a defenseless receiver rule, right?
And the bigger lesson to this, though, is like the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Even if he's a defenseless receiver.
Right.
We're just
again
we're throwing a guy out for 3.5 games
if he wasn't laid out. Right? That's the argument. I'm not arguing about the helmet contact. I'm not arguing about the rule about defenseless players. I'm arguing about the scenario and what we're asking defenders to be able to do. Man.
That's a slippery slope, though, too, Ben, because then it's like now we tell these quarterbacks who can place the ball, maybe not Gardner Minshew, but these elite quarterbacks who can put the ball wherever the fuck they want. We're saying make them lay out because then they can't tackle him, or else we have this.
Or we're getting 15 free.
What do you do as the defensive player in that position if you can't make contact at all?
Right.
I mean,
I don't think I
honestly, Pittman's kind of the angry bird in this scenario, is he not?
Yeah,
like he's the yellow bird.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know that I even fault the refs for throwing the flag because, like I said, the optics of it were bad in the moment. I get it, but how do we eject him? Because the ejection didn't come right away. That came after discussion, and they were talking to New York. And then how do we suspend him after watching that replay? I just don't get that. Like the aftermath is too much. It's too much.
Compounding mistakes.
Yeah, it's too much. All right. I think we've beaten that equine carcass beyond repair. As we mentioned a moment ago, the Lions lay it on the Broncos 42-17. Is Jared Goff a good quarterback or is he a bad quarterback? Because we ask ourselves that from fucking week to week.
I don't know anymore. I have no fucking idea.
Five tugs. 340 yards, I think he had this weekend.
I dropped him in fantasy.
I had him on my bench in one of the leagues.
I dropped him this week. I dropped him.
Right. Is he good? Is he bad? What is it?
I lost by 8. I dropped him, and I lost by 8. And I played
not better. We're not going that far, Ben.
Jesus Christ. So I played Matt Stafford instead. The thing was I wasn't going to play Goff. I was going to play Howell. Yeah. And
I did. So that was my exact scenario. I benched Goff. He goes nuts. And I'm like, well, fucking hopefully Howell has a good game, and he doesn't.
Dude, this was my week. Like, I did that. I lost by 8 points. I did that. I started I had T. Higgins on my bench because I couldn't play him anymore. And then Tyreek doesn't play.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the third receiver. Well, I have Marquise Brown. Even though he put up 0 last week, I might trust him. But I'm going to pick up Curtis Samuel just in case because it's a 4:00 game. Samuel has 18. So, and I got 0 out of Brown. I lost by 8. So I mismanaged the fuck out of my team.
That's a tough go.
However, the Lions, I don't know a Goff, man. Like, I don't. So there was something 2 weeks ago that I ignored the fuck out of because I was like, fuck this guy. I'm so upset with him. That people were saying that he was potentially had an injury that was being covered up. That might be Lions fans trying to sugarcoat things, Lions media trying to sugarcoat things. Something was really wrong with Jared Goff for like 3 weeks. He had 8 turnovers in 3 weeks.
I know.
Or in 4 weeks, sorry. The Saints game shouldn't be in there. 3 against the Bears, 2 against the Packers, 3 against the Bears. I think 1 against the Saints, actually. So 9 in 4 weeks. Awful. 5 touchdowns. Looks good. The ball looked good. There was a couple weeks where I was watching, and I was like, he doesn't even throw a good ball. The ball was bad every time. It was wobbling weird. I didn't see it at all this week. I don't know. Is Denver's defense real fucking bad all of a sudden? I have no idea. Was everything, and they came out, and they were bad in the first quarter offensively, Detroit was, but they just took off. And the defense was a huge thing. But Goff, the fucking jury's, I have no idea. I'm going to stop talking about Goff completely because I don't know if he's good or bad. I thought he was really bad. Then I was like, oh, now he looks really good. and then he looked really bad again, and then I'm done.
Yep.
I'm done acting like I know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yeah, we don't know week to week, and then and Russ similar, right? We don't know week to week what Russ we're gonna get either. Oh, all right. A game we're probably not going to talk a whole lot about, but the Panthers get win number 2 on the season, and the Falcons reinforce my statement every week that they are the worst roster in football. 9-7, Carolina gets a win over Atlanta. Probably the only consideration this has is like the bad NFC South. They're still in contention, but now it's like the Saints and Bucks might be the class, if you can even call them class, of the NFC South. And the Panthers are threatening to ruin the draft stock of the Chicago Bears because the Chicago Bears hold their first-round pick. Right now they sit at number 1, but Washington is quickly stinking it up and chasing that number 1 pick, along with a couple of other teams that are really bad. But if Carolina fucks up and goes and wins a couple more, Chicago is going to lose the number 1 pick potentially. That's probably the only real thing to consider from this game, right? Because Bryce Young, the rookie quarterback, didn't play a super great game for them to win. He managed it. They got 3 field goals and won the game.
I think the big thing of the game is 45-cent tickets.
Dude, rub 2 quarters together and you could have gone to the Panthers game this weekend.
Listen, I didn't even know they had a 500 section. But for 45 cents, I'll drink $9 beers all day.
Ben's a jaded fan too.
I don't think they'll beat the Colts. So I kind of thought Carolina would win a second game this year. I think 2's it.
Probably.
And being against a divisional foe and the Falcons makes a lot of sense at home, especially when
they beat last year too when they were awful.
Right. I mean, listen, you've got to have a couple. It's we say it's hard to like win 0 games. I think it's hard to win 1 game too. I mean, you're an NFL team after all.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, you're in the fucking worst division on planet Earth. So, yeah. 45 cents
toilet bowl every week.
Sell those fuckers for 35 cents next week.
Yeah, they couldn't even sell them. That stadium was
right.
So
I mean, at this point, you're just trying to sell concessions, right?
Right.
I mean,
you're just giving away tickets to get them in the door to buy a hot dog.
Just give the fuckers away for free. If I was there, I'd go.
Right. Onward to. Listen, I've got a close buddy who's a Bears fan, and I feel for him, man, because I don't know who else snatches defeat from the jaws of victory like the Chicago Bears. They did it against the Lions earlier this year. They should have swept the Lions. They've done it in several games this year, and they did it again this weekend against the Browns. They're up 17-7. I believe there was 7 minutes to play in the game. Don't quote me on the amount of time, but it was late in the game. They're up 17-7. And they just like go into this like fumble-rooski fucking scenario where they just can't do anything right. And the Browns end up taking a 20-17 lead. And then the Bears have a Hail Mary shot, and Darnell Mooney has 2 hands, his chest, and his legs on the ball, yet that results in an interception. It's like, if that's not the most Bears thing ever, I don't know what is, because that's like literally you've got the game won, yet he just somehow finds a way to bobble it, kick it up, and fucking Browns defender catches it. Like, come on. From the seat of his pants, too. Like, oh my goodness.
Kadarius Toney shit, man.
It really is. It really is.
I mean, I feel for it with the Bears. Like I've been in weird situations like that with Detroit. I'm here for it though. Like keep it up. Listen, I'm fine. I'm okay with it, man. Like I don't mind at all. Eberflus, I think, does a weird job sometimes though too. Like that guy does not know how to fucking manage a game with a lead.
No, not at all.
With a lead at all. Like the weird part is I think sometimes when they're trying to scrap back, he seems okay. Like the seat of his pants. Like he's just
coaching desperate.
But like desperate, but not out of control.
Sure.
And then as soon as it's like
he's comfortable with chaos or something.
That uncharted territory of like, we're on our way.
We have a lead.
And again, it's not all his fault because the players are obviously making these bad plays, but like at some point, it's got to be about you. And you got a weird fucking name too, dude.
He does too. A super generic first name, weird last name.
Right. It sounds like sounds like the villain in a Christmas cartoon for sure.
But on the flip side for the Browns, man, another win in a tough AFC. Joe Flacco, is he elite? Is he not? No, just kidding.
Wacko for Flacco.
Yeah, let's throw back to that. Listen, one of the all-time playoff runs, but he's winning games with the Browns. He knows what he's got to do with a defense that's this damn good, right? Because that defense is fucking otherworldly. He's just doing his best not to fuck it up. It looked like he was fucking it up because he had 2 picks early in this game, but they just kept churning and kept finding plays here and there, and then the Bears choked it away, and the Browns pounced and capitalized.
Yeah, you can't fuck up against the Browns. You just can't. Like you can't make mistakes.
Nope.
Especially on offense. If you make mistakes offensively, their
defense is going to kill you.
Yeah, you're going to get swallowed up quick.
Yep, for sure. All right, Bucks, Packers. I guess we're back to the Packers aren't good. Is that where we're back to now?
I don't know about them. They're, I listen. They're kind of a team where I think Jordan Love's still going through it. Sometimes he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say even if it were true, I'm not going to say it because it's the Packers. But I think people have been going overboard with like Green Bay never misses. Talking about Favre, Rodgers, Love. This isn't that. It's not the same thing. I mean, I don't dislike Jordan Love. I don't think he's a bad player.
We'll talk about Dallas.
But this isn't going to be Rodgers or Favre again. I mean, you're not getting that. I do think that you're getting a better quarterback than we all came away with believing last year.
Yeah, he looked bad.
He did. He had some like preseason runs where he looked terrible. But like I think he's figured it out. Obviously that team's had some injuries. Jones has been hurt all season. Now this year he was available. Dillon was hurt. They've had some defensive woes. I think the Packers are heading in the right direction. I hate to fucking say it. That makes me feel like I need to shower, but it's not all bad.
I think the way I look at it is, and I know I've joked with you a little bit about it, and I joked on Facebook like how NFC North fans, fucking Packers did it again, right? Yep. I was being sarcastic. However, that was the sentiment from a lot of people, right? I think what they have figured out with Jordan Love is that they've got a quarterback that they can win with, and that's a valuable thing in the NFL, right? However, I do believe that once the inevitable happens and he gets his quarterback contract or he comes off his rookie contract, I don't know that you're going to pay that guy $40 million and still win games, right? Because he's a guy that I think if they still had Devontae Adams and they had some of these young guys, I think they'd be really good offensively. But I just don't know that he's Rodgers, he's Favre, he's Brady, he's Manning. He's not one of those guys, he's Mahomes, right? He's not one of those guys that you think like is basically personnel proof and he's going to be able to win with whoever you throw out there on the field, right? So I think that you're right? That we overreacted, right? The collective royal we overreacted that all the Packers never miss. But I also think that they've got a guy that they can build around, and you can win with that guy. I just don't know. Is he going to figure it out before the end of his rookie deal? Because you have to remember too, right, Packers fans, he's been on the bench for 3 fucking years.
Right.
He's coming up on the end of his rookie deal much faster than a lot of these rookies who start are, right? So you're going to have to make that decision soon, and you're going to have to make that decision about whether you can win with him being that much of a bloated portion of your salary cap, because now quarterbacks are like 20 to 25% of the fucking salary cap. It's absurd. But or do you maybe get lucky and he takes a little bit of a discount on his first contract? I don't know, right? But they've got to make that decision quickly, and I don't know that he's that guy that you're going to say, we're going to pay you $40 million and you're going to go win us games, right?
Well, it's coming too, right? Because we're talking what? Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, Tua, Love, right? Yep. That's all the same package. So, what what a good class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, if Jordan Love's the worst quarterback or the fifth quarterback,
That's not bad
in that class. It's not terrible.
That's 83 draft type shit.
Right, that's fucking
Yeah.
That's they doesn't miss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna play. My dad's asking about Rodgers. I don't think he plays. I think what Rodgers is on is a
DMT.
One, he's yeah. But I also think he's on like a messianic mission to like he wants to just prove the medical system wrong, right? He just wants to, he's on a crusade. He wants to be cleared, but he also wanted the Jets to be eliminated so he didn't have to play. That was the perfect scenario for Rodgers was this that has played out. It has played out in his favor. He can say, I'm 100% cleared. He said on McAfee he's not yet, but I think by the end of the season, we are going to hear that his doctors have cleared him to play, but the Jets are out of playoff contention and there's no reason to risk it, right? I think that's what we were always headed toward as long as the Jets got eliminated from playoff contention, right? And I think the writing was on the wall with how bad they've had quarterback play, but I don't know. What are your do you think there's no way Rodgers suits up, right?
No, I 1,000% agree with you. I listen, Rodgers is a weird guy, man.
He's fucking weird.
I don't know who his deal is, but I like how you say to like kind of give it to the man in a sense with the medical, you know, whatever industrial complex
guy in the room, man.
if you will. I mean, he's out there. He's calling Kelsey like Mr. Pfizer and shit like that. Like he's just, this is who he is. And I'm not saying he's right or wrong, but
it is who he is.
I don't listen. I think his recovery is going really well. It looks like
the fact that he's walking around, dropping back, doing some football activities. That's a huge win.
Yeah. I mean, cool as fuck, dude. But like there's a real large difference between that and then suiting up behind that offensive line and playing actual football
with 300 plus linemen bearing down on you.
Right. With a line that can't block shit.
Yeah. No way.
No. I'll never say never, but never.
I'll say never. Yeah, I think it's just a storyline. It's a way for him to stay relevant too. And we all know he just wants to stay relevant.
He does. I mean, now he's saying like he doesn't think next year will be his last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this year might have been your last year, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Whatever it is with him. Speaking of the Jets, 30-0, Miami dumps one on the Jets. Much to take away from this. This is Miami beating up another bad team, right? And we've seen Miami lay eggs against good teams. And I don't want to spoil the preview, but they're playing what we perceive as a good team this coming weekend. Is this just Miami beating up another bad team?
I mean, it's probably partially that. We haven't really seen them do it without Tyreek yet. And then Waddle just comes out and is like, okay, I'm Tyreek this week.
I'm Tyreek now.
Everything's great.
Look at me. I'm Tyreek now. I am the team now.
Miami's another one of those teams, and we've been over this before with Detroit and with Dallas. Like, how much do we trust them when it comes to a team who can punch back, right?
Yeah.
I still don't know as far as Miami's concerned. However, we're going to get to see it because I don't think there's much holding them back from winning the division at this point. We'll see. Yeah. Buffalo's got a lot of work to do.
There's a path.
But they have to just win now.
Now Bills just have to win. They need Miami to lose one. They need Dallas or Baltimore to take care of business. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Listen, I said probably 3 weeks ago that I thought Buffalo was still going to win the division. I'm more skeptical now than I was then. Like, time's ticking, man. I don't. Buffalo has really no room for error. They're going to get.
But they also have. I mean, they've got the schedule in front of them, right? They play the Chargers without Herbert this week.
New England.
Then they play New England with
Miami.
Whoever they've got under center in New England. Zappa snack up there in New England. And
Yeah,
then they've
but-
got Miami, right? Yeah.
Well,
So
look
the
at
road
the
is there
last
for
time
Buffalo.
the last time they played New England, though.
They lost.
I remember saying to the wife, like, "Yeah, I don't want to watch that game," and then they lost
knocked them off.
the divisional game in Miami. Like, that to me is going to be the biggest thing for Miami, not just because it's the last game, but were you able to go 1-1 with the Bills, or do you get swept by them? Because that's going to tell me a ton.
Wow.
You know, I mean, at that point, it might mean the world anyways.
Yeah. Yep.
That'll be a really cool matchup if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, for sure. Week 18 for the division. Hell yeah.
That's why they scheduled it that way.
That's why they scheduled it like that. All right. Giants, Saints. Tommy DeVito came down to earth, got nicked up a little bit in this game. The Saints defense looked like the Saints defense that we saw early in the season. However, it's the Giants. Saints are now tied atop the NFC South with the Buccaneers. That's probably the only takeaway from this game. Derek Carr got Chris Olave involved. Kamara looked okay, but I mean, we're talking about a team that's competing for the NFC South and the rights to lose in the first round of the playoffs, right?
I mean, I've seen a 7-9 Seahawks team do it before.
They're gonna host.
Twice, right? It's one was 7, one was 8 wins.
Yeah,
I believe. Actually, the 7 wins was against the Saints. I think Drew Brees, they had 11 wins. They went into Seattle, lost.
Yep.
Yeah, that's real fun. That's a lot of fun. Oh, yeah, and we never know. We were talking about at the top of the show that there's some competitiveness in weird spots. So, fuck, 7, 8 wins, 9 wins, host a divisional game, and shit.
Never know. Texans Titans. This one looked like it was going to deal a real big blow to the Texans' playoff chances. But the Titans, they just kind of fumbled the bag down the stretch, and then of course they couldn't seal the deal at the end of regulation, and then they end up losing to the Texans. I was talking to my dad quite a bit about this game because it really impacted the AFC playoffs, right? With Houston, Buffalo has no tiebreakers. So Buffalo needs help either to win a wild card or to win the division, right? But again, they just have to take care of business. That's the biggest thing. But they do need some help, and this was going to be one of those ones that would have helped them. However, the Titans fumbled the bag down the stretch. This Texans team is fucking plucky, man.
They're weird.
They're right. They
get blown the fuck out by the Jets the week before.
Right.
What was that game, 30-6 or 9 or some shit like that?
The Jets doubled their season total of points.
Yeah, they just get handled by a team who can't score.
Yep.
And everybody's like, well, where's that Ryan's defense? And then now we see it this week. They handle business, hold the team to, was it 16?
16.
I mean, 16 in overtime. So, I mean, that's, extra inning situation here, and we're holding the team to 16. So, yeah, Texans are one of those teams where they're probably one of those teams where you don't want to play them in the postseason.
I don't think so, man. They're one of those plucky teams. You just don't want to have to. You don't want to have to try to kill them, right? You don't want to have to be the one to try to knock them out of the playoffs. Oh, Chiefs, Patriots, and this looked like it was going to be a competitive game for quite a bit. Chiefs kind of pulled away late. I know I've been probably to the point of being annoying about it with Rashee Rice, but it feels like he's finally wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. If they've got wide receiver 1, do we feel like by January they're going to be the Chiefs of old, or are we still seeing an offense that it looks like Kelsey's not Kelsey, which I think is the biggest factor for this offense? But all season long they've had all these problems at wide receiver. Maybe they've got a guy. Maybe they get the offense clicking again. Maybe they can start getting some of those double and triple teams pulled away from Kelsey. I don't know. What do you think? Are we going to see Kansas City kind of revive things before January?
I mean, I think that if Kansas City is in the playoffs, they're a scary team, right? I mean, who realistically, we can say whatever we want about the Chiefs, but nobody wants to play them.
No, I mean, not with that defense either. They got one of the better defenses.
Right, in the defense. I mean, Kelsey, Obviously, there's questions there. Rice, again, you did call it. I think one of the big things for them is going to be if they get Chanko back, right?
Yeah.
And Clyde Edwards-Helaire can offer what he's currently offering in the pass game, especially.
Yep.
But also Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we have some things there. So I do think that the Chiefs did need this one, though. This was one they needed. Like, coming off like a tough path here the last few weeks.
Yeah, they really
had
need
to have this game. But again, I think a 7-seed Chiefs is a scary Chiefs, right? I don't think there's any scenario where they're in the postseason and you're not like, fuck.
Yeah, you don't want to see 15 on the other sideline.
I mean, it's and to a further extent a little bit too, but I would even say a similar thing about like the Bills. Like I don't want to see the Bills. I'm not comfortable even if the Bills, are low. You don't want them in the playoffs. So because this is a proven team the last few years. I mean, obviously the Chiefs go to the highest plateau of that, but yeah. There's some teams you don't want to be looking down the barrel of a fucking 6-seed Philadelphia Eagles team.
Right. Yep. Niners, Cardinals. I think the most surprising piece of this is the Cardinals hung 29 on the Niners. I expected this to be much more of like a 45-10 type game, but Niners offense is humming. They've got playmakers fucking everywhere on that offense. And Jordan Mason is healthy, so he's spelling McCaffrey and putting up 5.5 yards a carry as the rest back there, right? When McCaffrey needs a breather. But Purdy's got Debo, he's got Ayuk, he's got Kittle, he's got McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. They got weapons everywhere. Great offensive line. They're going to score. It seemed like the Cardinals just had a little bit of Kyler Murray was kind of making plays. They ended up putting up some points. Do you worry about the Niners defense at all?
No.
I
think if they have to have it, like if they go out there and they're like, we might only score 21 points today, I think the defense is going to respond.
Yeah.
Divisional foe too. I mean, one of those things. Yeah. I did loosely. We didn't have the show last week, so I missed out. But I loosely said in front of a couple people because I drew McCaffrey in the first round of fantasy because, of course, I did against the Cardinals.
Of course.
And I loosely was like, he'll get 50, 40. So that's
close enough.
40's fine,
Close enough for a fantasy matchup.
Fucking McCaffrey. God damn it. I knew it too. Like I was like, I'm really playing fucking McCaffrey against Cardinals week 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, San Fran. We talked about Philly, Gary. It's your coined phrase. Philly is not the boogeyman. Well, I do believe San Francisco might be the boogeyman.
I was going to ask you, are they the best team in the league?
Yes. Right. They have to be. They had that skid, and they've just, bottle rocketed the fuck out of there since.
Yep.
And, I talked about, like, you don't want to play Philly if they're the 6th seed. You don't want to play Buffalo, KC. Like, you don't want to play San Fran at all, right?
Right.
They are a fucking buzzsaw because that defense can give you work. Yep. Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle, and company with Purdy can. It might be. It's like probably the best skill position set in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have Debo, who's probably a mid-tier number one. He's not a mid-tier number one. He's probably still a top 10 number one. But you have Ayuk,
but he also threatens you in a number of ways too, right? Like not just as a receiver.
But Ayuk is the number 2, is top 3 probably. Number 2's in the league. Maybe that he could. I mean, you can make a case for him being the best number 2 in the NFL. I think. Maybe. And then you got McCaffrey, who probably you wouldn't get much pushback as the best running back in the NFL. And Kittle. I think Kittle for a fantasy value sits at like 2 right now behind Kelsey. So I mean it's a pretty fucking scary.
Good.
You got Eric Armstead chasing you around out there.
Yeah,
you don't want that.
No, you don't want that smoke.
Chase Young has found a spot where he can just do whatever Chase Young wants to do.
He doesn't even have to play in a system. They just send him in there. Just go chase the fucking ball.
Yeah, like you can't double team anybody.
No, can't.
There's no room for that.
Nope, not at all. Washington and the Rams. The Rams keep their playoff hopes alive. They are on the outside looking in, but I don't know that a lot of you don't want to face Aaron Donald, and the way they can run the ball with Kyron Williams, I think, makes a difference. Cooper Kupp has reemerged. About 2 weeks too late for my fantasy hopes. But I digress. My big takeaway from this game is Ron is by far the worst coach in the NFL. And you can argue with your mom about any other coach in the league, because I had to watch this absurd display, ill prepared to deal with anything the Rams threw at him. We got out physical. We didn't chip on Aaron Donald ever, and Sam Howell was under fucking duress all game. And then we're down 28-7, and Ron says, we're just going to put Jacoby Brissett in the game. Like, what? And then we're doubling, tripling, teaming fucking Aaron Donald and just throwing bombs to Terry McLaurin. And then I've got to listen to Ron after the game fucking speculate about the growth of a quarterback. Like, Bub, we watched you do it with Cam. We've watched you fumble the bag with quarterbacks in Washington. You don't know what the growth of a quarterback looks like. I can't stand him and his fucking shtick. He can't get out of town fast enough, man. He just cannot. I'll flip the coin a little on the Rams, though. They play a scary brand of football, because Kyron Williams can fucking punish you in a lot of ways.
Well, right. So, I mean, to speak of Washington really quick, my question is Ron out?
Yes.
You firmly believe that?
I believe it. I believe he's gone after the season. I believe he's gone. I believe what happened was that he and Josh Harris had a conversation at the beginning of the year, and Ron pitched to him that we might have found a quarterback. And he said, give me this season at least. Don't fire me halfway through the season, whatever, yada, yada. And Harris gave him his word, handshake. And that's been what's been reported around here. Okay. So that I believe that. I also believe that I've watched Magic Johnson in the owner's suite, and he's not happy, and this isn't going to stand. I think we're going to clean house from coach/GM and Ron Rivera to our two presidents of football operations, or our two co-GMs, and Martin Mayhew and what's his face, and then
Martin Mayhew.
Martin Mayhew.
I could have told you about that being a mistake.
I know.
Years ago.
Yeah. And I think they're going to clean out with Jason Smith at president of operations as well. I think we're going to get a whole new front office, coach all the way up. I think that the new ownership group wants to put their stamp on it. I think they were just put in a bad spot. I think if this sale of the team had gone through in like January of last year, Ron wouldn't be the coach right now. I don't think Ron would have made it to minicamp. I'll be completely honest, because they were put in a bad spot. They bought the team 2 weeks before fucking minicamp. What were you going to do then?
No, you can't. It would have been reckless too. Right. And one thing I can say for Magic Johnson is a guy who is accustomed to winning.
Yes.
So we've seen him in the NBA a little bit though, and there was some question marks. However, I do feel like the goal was always to win. And when he, when that goal, when other people stood in the way of that goal, Magic got the fuck out of there. So I don't think he's a guy who's going to sit back and actively lose. So you probably got that going for you. The Rams, shit, man. I remember saying at the beginning of the year, like week one, that I thought like they weren't quite a pushover. And, I think they continue to show that. I do believe when you have Aaron Donald, and it doesn't really matter who else on defense, you have a chance there. When you have now Cooper Kupp being back and healthy, the emergence of Puka and Kyron Williams, And then you have Matthew Stafford too, who is, aging out a little bit, but we're still talking a quarterback that I think the biggest thing with Stafford is like you could go to sleep and kind of trust that Stafford will get
They're
shit
protecting him this year better than they did last year too.
Yeah, they are.
He got beat up last year.
Listen, I just did it in fantasy this week with dropping Goff and not playing Howell and saying like I can trust the steady. I felt safer putting Stafford had like 24 points, so it wasn't anything bad. But I do think that there is some comfort there with a guy like that, with a guy like Aaron Donald.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're Sean Payton, you're saying this is, or not Sean Payton, Jesus.
Sean McVay.
Sean McVay, you're saying that this is a formula that I've done it with before with these, two guys on both sides of the ball here that I trust, and then you add in the added weapons on offense, and this team, again, it might be one of those teams where you fucking draw them in the first round. It's like shit.
You got to fucking deal with 99 all day.
Right. Yeah. You don't want, who the fuck wants that guy in the first round of the playoffs? Especially if you've done your work to be like a good seed.
Yeah, we're the two. Like, you got to deal with Aaron Donald.
Right. You're Dak Prescott and you got to run from Aaron Donald all game. Like, that sucks.
Yeah. Woof. Speaking of Dak Prescott, Dallas and Buffalo. I have some thoughts, but I'm going to let you go first on this one. Talk to me about Cowboys Bills.
I thought Dallas was going to win. I did. I
think a lot of people did, honestly.
It really wasn't anything to do with like the Bills. Like I didn't think it was going to be a blowout or anything, but Dallas was going to be my pick. They're just fucking proving they don't. Now there was a report that they had a bunch of key pieces sick this week
after the game.
I hate that.
With that. I miss you with that.
I hate it. I hate it when it happens. And I knew you were going to say it because I was thinking the same thing. It's still in my mind.
That came out at like 3:30 before the game.
I know. When I read that though, it's like, fuck, are they lying or did it really happen?
Right.
They look off. Buffalo, I think, more so than anything, I think Buffalo looked very good. They looked like they were a team that was prepared to be at home against, another good NFL team and just handle business. So kudos to them. Yeah.
My big thoughts are this, right? And what I take away from this game is we've got two teams that are on different ends of a spectrum of good teams, right? We've got Buffalo, who's a good team, who can beat good teams, who can beat great teams. We've seen them beat Kansas City in Arrowhead. We've seen them beat now Dallas. They had them at home. They boat raced Miami earlier this year. They've laid some eggs, and I think they've had some growing pains with the change in the offense and some of the approach. They've let Josh Allen off the leash, and he is a fucking unicorn, and he's showing us why we consider him a unicorn. No turnovers in this game either, which snapped a streak of like 19 straight games. Whatever. He's like
leading the league.
Yeah. But he's also leading the league in touchdowns. He's also leading the league in offensive production from the
I'm just saying, no turnovers this week. He's still leading the league.
Yeah. You know who's in second? Mahomes.
I thought it was Hurts.
Maybe it's Hurts, but Mahomes is right there too. He's got like 14.
Like that, yeah.
But they're both right there. Maybe Mahomes is second in the AFC. Then maybe that's.
I might have been wrong. It might have been Mahomes.
No, I know Hurts is up there too. But then I look at Dallas, and Dallas is a good team who can't beat good teams. Put a pin in the comment that they beat Philly because I'm going to talk about Philly in just a moment. But Dallas is a good team that can't beat good teams. They also can't win away from home. They got Seattle at home, and they beat up on Seattle a bit, and everybody was like, they fixed all the issues of beating teams with winning records. Fine, but then they go to Buffalo the very next week and get their asses kicked, right? Or, I'm sorry, they beat Philly, then they go to Buffalo and get their asses kicked, right? This is a team that they don't play well away from home. This is a very finesse team, and Buffalo did something to them that Washington has done in the past, what San Francisco did to them, what Philly has done to them in the past. Run the ball directly at Micah Parsons all game and don't get away from it. And they beat the dog shit out of that Dallas front. And that's not something we usually expect from Buffalo, but that is the formula to beat up on that Cowboys defense. This feels like two teams on opposite ends of the spectrum. And you've mentioned a few of these teams that you don't want to see at all. I'm not getting ahead of myself with Buffalo, so I'm not going to say it. However, I will say this. Buffalo is a team that I think it doesn't matter the venue, the setting, the time. This is a team that can go beat anybody in the NFL on any given day, especially when we get into January, when you're gonna strap the fucking saddle on Josh Allen and just let him go. James Cook, what a fucking coming out party for him as well. Career day against a big time foe. All the eyes are on it because it's Dallas. We know what Dallas brings to the table when you come to TV, right? Eyes on TV sets. What a time for him to break out. But James Cook's having a huge, huge year. It's unbelievable that how bad he was last year when you look at how good he's been this year. So those are things that add up for me. And Buffalo's playing pretty good defense right now as well. This team is scary as we get closer to January.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think they were one of the teams I was talking about with the Chiefs there. Like, you don't want to play them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they are, they're a tough team. And they've got, one of the premier players at the premier position in the league in Josh Allen. They have, one of the premier players in one of the, probably maybe not the next most important position, but one of the most important positions in Stephon Diggs. And like you said, Jesus. I was looking at Zach Moss because I was thinking how Zach Moss is playing well this year too. Cook playing awesome football. The defense getting it together. Von Miller, we'll see.
That's a weird situation, ain't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Well, that's one of the things is I don't know if the fucking floor is going to fall out on that at any point. So, again, I mean, I'll have a lot of people remind me that Von Miller hasn't really done anything this season, but still a guy you'd prefer to have on the field rather than
got
off.
after Dak a little bit this weekend, though.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills, yeah. In Dallas, yeah, you said it. I mean, there's been some teams. It's been Miami, Dallas, and Detroit that I don't know if we trust because they get the job done against the teams they're supposed to get the job done against. But when it comes to playing a good team, I think Dallas has like 2 wins against 500 teams or over 500 teams. I think Detroit has 2. I don't remember about Miami, maybe 2 as well, something low. But yeah.
Yeah, those are the poster children for good teams who can't beat good teams.
Right. But I said the same about Philly last year, and they ended up in the fucking big game. So
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know.
That is fair. Baltimore, Jacksonville. We've talked quite a bit about Baltimore and mentioned Jacksonville a little bit when we were talking about the Chargers, of course, in passing. Baltimore really just kind of suffocated Jacksonville in this game. Unfortunately for Baltimore, they lose a guy who they seem to be starting to lean a little more heavily on. I know I said early in the year, like Baltimore with running backs is weird. Maybe you can't trust it, that sort of thing. But Keaton Mitchell was starting to get more and more touches per game. And with his elite speed, he was starting to make good on those touches. And then, of course, one of the more horrific ways to see like a leg injury. Like it folded back the wrong, like legs don't fold that direction. And you feel for the young guy.
If you're a dinosaur, that's cool.
Yeah, a velociraptor, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
But yeah, man, like that's tough. It's tough, especially for a young guy like that, an undrafted guy. His dad played for the Ravens, and he was just starting to come into his own, and you see stuff like that. Sucks. However, the Ravens were able to overcome all that and continue to ground and pound and suffocate the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde too, right? They're one of those teams that can you trust them from week to week? What do you take away from this game?
No, they're a lot of bit Jekyll and Hyde, right? I think we all, expected them to make the next step this year. They win that playoff game that Staley and company kind of fumbled. They win that. We see the young Trevor Lawrence go, and he gets you a playoff game, and it's like now the division is theirs this year. They probably win 12 games, 13 games. I mean, they've got 8 now. They can't win 12. I don't know. It's like they're very gettable.
Yeah.
I think they can beat good teams. I do. I think they have enough firepower to do it. However, I feel like they lose the teams they shouldn't more often than they beat teams they shouldn't.
Yeah.
So that makes me apprehensive about that team. And then Baltimore, you talk about that injury to Keaton Mitchell, and if you're ever going to celebrate an injury, it's in that spot because they still have Gus the Bus.
Yep.
You still have Justice Hill. So if there's anywhere they can afford to lose a key player, it's probably at running back. And Baltimore's like quietly scary, right? They had a stint like a few weeks there where they beat the shit out of some teams. Seattle, Detroit were 2 of those teams. And it was like, man, this team is just really scary. They've kind of toned that down a little bit the last few weeks, but they're still just getting the job done. 11-3. They look like they could run away with the AFC.
Yep, for sure. They're also a team you mentioned, like are they great anywhere other than maybe quarterback?
Probably not. They're well-rounded enough, and they're very well coached.
100% well-rounded, very well coached. But where are they great? Maybe on the defensive front in some ways.
The front, yeah.
But yeah, they just get the you
and
said
running the ball,
get the job done.
I think they're great at running the ball. Like no matter what happens, you get the combination of Lamar and the running backs, and they will run the football very well no matter what.
Yep.
But it's like they lose. You lose a top, 3 to 5 tight end, and probably a top 15 pass catcher.
Yeah.
In Mark Andrews, and it's like
ho hum.
You just keep chugging along. Zay Flowers is starting to look really good. I don't think
likely isn't terrible.
I don't think he had much of a game this week. What did he end up with? I don't think anything crazy, but he's looking. Yeah, he only had 1 catch. Been looking good though, like coming down the stretch. So I just this team, Lamar Jackson throws the ball to a lot of fucking guys, man.
They spread it around.
He did 9 receivers with a catch. So that's just
spread it around.
This team, they are very well-rounded. I think well-rounded is probably the most correct way to put it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I don't know that he's healthy. He wasn't moving in the pocket as well against Baltimore. And when you're a stationary target, that can be a problem.
Especially against Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably a point of contention for the Jaguars right down the stretch here is, are we going to be able to get Trevor to 100% by the time the playoffs roll around? You hope so.
Well, and then he has the concussion worry now too.
Yep.
So but again, I don't feel like Jacksonville was quite hitting the marks they were supposed to be hitting even before all of this. So tough to say.
Agreed. And then we round out the week with the artist formerly known as the Boogeyman dropping one against Seattle. A game they really shouldn't have dropped. Let's be honest about this, right? Because we have questions about Geno Smith as the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks have questions about Drew Lock as the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. And he's able to engineer a game-winning drive against what everybody perceived as good a defense as they were last year. They went and got Kevin Byard and brought in some other guys and moved on from some guys that were dragging them down. And they continue to have that defensive front that everybody wants to yammer about quite a bit. Yet they might be a bad team, man. I'm going to put it blunt. They might be a bad football team because without the tush push, they have they average 13 points a game without the tush push. I don't know. Am I way off? Am I way off here in saying that Philly might be a bad team because Jalen Hurts is up there in the league with turnovers. I've heard some excuse making today and yesterday or today about Jalen Hurts. He doesn't look healthy. No, he looks like dog shit. He looks like the quarterback that got ran out of Alabama. He looks like the quarterback that didn't get drafted in the first round after having an historic season at Oklahoma because there are question marks about his ability to play the quarterback position. He's a running back who just happens to have a very talented right arm in a lot of ways, but he's not a guy who's going to be able to drive you down the field consistently. He's a guy who's going to turn the ball over a lot. They had him. What superstar fucking quarterback has ever had a drill in practice designed around everybody trying to take the ball away from him? It's a problem. He's not the guy everybody has built him up. Last year was the anomaly for him. That's my opinion. I don't think he's a good NFL quarterback. This might be a bad football team because they can't scheme around his deficiencies this year on offense the way that they seem to be able to last year. I open the floor to you.
I don't know. I dance around it a little bit. I don't think Hurts is a bad quarterback. I don't think that Hurts is like, because he's not like a top tier quarterback. So there's been this conversation that I've heard this year of why aren't we talking about Hurts in terms of the best in the league? And that's crazy. Like right. I don't want to have that conversation ever. And I don't think it's even a fair conversation to entertain. I think he can get it done though. Like I think in a very similar way that like a Dak Prescott gets it done, not the same style, but having these shortcomings. Lamar Jackson has a lot of short. And actually, they're a little more similar even. Jared Goff, like there's these guys that aren't great quarterbacks, but I think they're good enough that you can do some things with them to win games. I don't think he's bad, man. I think he's above average, I guess, if I'm answering the question. I also think that I don't think Philly's a bad team. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, obviously. But Philly has to get back to the quick hitters, right? They're not doing it anymore. Last year, they were going out there, they were scoring on the first drive consistently. I thought they took more chances on the first drives or early in the game last year. I don't think they take those chances. It's kind of like they got comfortable and they feel like they've evolved a little bit because they went to the Super Bowl. They can slow things down. I don't feel like they play with the same sense of urgency as they did before. And I think that's kind of hurting them a little bit.
Yeah. I watch them play on a weekly basis. And I've seen a lot of their games this year because they're just on in the area because we're right in their fucking backyard and they're a prominent team right now.
Right.
And like, I've left several of their games this year. Like, how'd Philly win that game? How did they win that game? And that's why I've been saying all year, like they're not the boogeyman. They're not the boogeyman. They might just be a bad team. I'm at that point where like I'm close to just saying like they're not a good football team, and maybe bad's the wrong word, but like they aren't who people are fucking building them up to be.
I mean, I agree they're not the boogeyman. And listen, either them or Dallas is going to end up with the short end of the stick here because you can't both be a top seed. So, yeah. I mean, somebody's getting kicked down that line.
Yeah.
And it looks like it might be Philly. I mean, Dallas gets embarrassed and they manage to move ahead.
Yeah, on the tiebreaker.
I mean,
common opponent. Yep. I've seen some teams be able to slow it down a little bit this year, but I think what's really happened is the league is starting to clamp down on some of the things that Philly has been doing that have made this play so successful in their application of the play. I'm still waiting for them to start regulating the fact that guys are behind Jalen Hurts, picking him up and just shoving him over bodies because that's what's going on. But I've seen more offensive offsides. I've seen more false starts. I've seen Jason Kelce called for 2 false starts now on push plays. I think the league is starting to regulate it and say, okay, there's a lot of people complaining about this play. We've got to do something about it to take it to kind of take it out of the game, or at least make it look like we're trying to do something about it, because we know the NFL is really good at that. that's what I think is going on a little more than teams are figuring it out. And that's where I think, because we saw it in this game against Seattle, Jason Kelce got called for a false start with a snap infraction, and it pushed them back 5 yards, and then they had to settle for a field goal.
Right, and that snap infraction is basically what we're talking about with the neutral zone infraction.
Yep.
And the NFL seems to kind of be, and it's because of Philly. Like the
Yep.
neutral zone infraction thing that we're seeing them watch more closely now, that's don't be fooled. That is a product of Philly, whether or not you're seeing it in a Philly game or not. They can't just call it on only the Eagles. So, you know, they can't be picking on them, so they got to spread it out. And we're going to see it. You're going to see, 10 years ago, you probably never saw an offensive player ever get that call against them.
Nope.
That's going to be the new popular. I think next year, especially, like,
we might see a ton of it.
That fucking thing's going to jump right out.
We might. All right. Well, that wraps up week 15. So let's get to the most important part of the episode. We are a veteran-owned podcast, and every episode we dedicate to a fallen service member in our segment that we call our Folds of Honor. Salute to service. All right, this episode goes out to Specialist Michael Isaiah Nance, died July 29, 2019, serving during Operation Freedom Sentinel. At the time of his passing, Specialist Nance was 24, hailing from Chicago. He died as a result of small arms fire in a reported incident. He was assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Specialist Michael Isaiah Nance, we have the watch. All right. Well, let's transition into taking a look at this week's upcoming games. We start out with Saints and Rams. We talked quite a bit about the Rams in terms of their playoff hopes. They have almost no shot at the division. San Fran hasn't quite locked it up yet, but they are on the brink of locking up the division. Saints are in a dogfight in the NFC South. How do you see this one playing out, man? I see you pick the Rams. Talk to me a little bit about why.
I just think they're a better football team, right? I mean, all the things we just talked about a few minutes ago with the Rams, with Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, the receivers, Kyren Williams. This team is just better. I feel like the Saints, even when things seem to be like on the uptick, they're just not good enough. I don't think they're going to get back to the defense that we saw in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. I don't think it was sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable against good teams, in my opinion. And, I think the Rams, they've got a couple winnable games here. They've got the Saints. They have the Giants. They're going to end with San Fran, which sucks, but by that point, San Fran may just be fucking sitting guys. Not that you ever want to let a divisional opponent in, but
yeah, right. And you don't want to let Aaron Donald in, right?
I mean, if Debo and fucking McCaffrey are out there in Week 18 with a big divisional lead, San Fran's shot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. Home team. I know LA doesn't give you much of a home field advantage, but I think if you can get New Orleans away from home, I think that's where your home field advantage comes in. So I agree. For all the reasons you said, I think they've got the weapons to do much more against this Saints defense than the Giants did last week, for sure. Bengals, Steelers, we're all on the Bengals like we are on the Rams. Unanimous here. Much more about Pittsburgh or about Cincy?
I think it's more about Cincy for me, man, all of a sudden, right? Because 2 weeks ago, we probably all picked Pittsburgh. Yep. I mean, I think I picked Pittsburgh. Yep. This Cincy team with Browning, a lot of uncertainties. And then this Steelers team who looked like they might be able to salvage some things, and now they don't. So maybe it's a little bit about them. But I'm going to say it's more about Cincy for me. Overcoming adversity is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're kind of the poster child for investing in the offensive line and playmakers, and you can have a quarterback make some plays. There's no quarterback controversy in Cincinnati. Let's fucking stop that nonsense. But they're able to survive with Jake Browning because they've got weapons and they've got an offensive line that they invested a lot of capital into. And you have to kind of tip your cap to Zach Taylor and Lou Anarumo, really, because Zach Taylor's a head coach, but he also coordinates the offense, and Lou Anarumo's done a bang-up job with that defense, who lost Jesse Bates, who's having a great season at Atlanta, but was a big loss for them. And they just continue to play good defense, and they're winning ball games with a backup quarterback. So hats off to both of those guys for weathering the storm of losing a guy like fucking Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Man, shout out to Jesse Bates for that paycheck and that fucking change of scenery, because that's all you got, pal.
That's it. That's it.
That Atlanta
you get to go eat the wings in the strip club in Atlanta.
Yeah. Instead of fucking chili on fucking pasta.
Yeah.
Yo, weirdos.
Yeah, you didn't go to a good football team. That's for goddamn sure. Buffalo Chargers, we're all on the Bills. Man, Buffalo's playing good football right now, and the Chargers are playing bad football right now. No Herbert. Presumably Eckler's going to continue to just be the fucking no-show that he's been all year. My fantasy team appreciates that. All three of them that I drafted him on. They all appreciate it, but Buffalo's on a roll. LA's going the other direction. Oftentimes there's a little bit of a bump from a coach change, but I don't see it this week.
Not without your starting quarterback. There's too many things that have gone wrong there, right? I mean, I don't see it at all. They're trending downward. Buffalo's trending upward. Vegas knows it. Minus 11.5.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a healthy road favorite.
Well, and they're going to have, the Bills are going to have more fans there than the Chargers. So
again, LA, it's not really a home field.
Well, LA's bad. Buffalo travels well. It's
it's
just a
Mafia's going to be breaking folding tables in the parking lot in LA.
Yeah, they're fucking going to be acting up for sure.
Indy and Atlanta, I know. I don't trust Indy, man.
I never saw your picks. I saw Raul's. I didn't see yours.
Yeah. I'm probably going to miss this one. I just don't trust Indy, dude. That's my thing. I don't trust Indy. Atlanta wins these weird games. They just, I don't know how they stay in these fucking games. Gut feeling? Call it a gut feeling. I don't know.
What's the listen, Vegas has Atlanta. Well, sort of. I mean, -1 at home is probably +2, right? So yeah. I don't know, man. I'm with you though. The Colts do. I think the Colts lose when I pick them, so they're probably going to lose. I was just saying that actually. Ben was tuned in earlier. I was just saying that to him on Sunday. I was like, I don't know what the fucking Colts, like every time I pick them, they seem to lose. Yeah. If I pick against them, they win. So they probably do lose this game. I don't know. I think there's a possibility we get Taylor back this week. I think it's a slimmer possibility still.
Yep.
However, it's there.
That could swing things.
Yeah, I don't fucking trust Atlanta. And they just come off that loss to Carolina, like yuck.
I don't know. I don't trust Indy. I went home team kind of, and I don't know. Gut feeling. Green Bay, Carolina, probably 35-cent seats this week. Packers fans travel well, so they'll be able to get some cheap seats in Carolina. That's a really nice stadium there too. It's fairly old, but it's still pretty state of the art. But yeah, you just can't attract fans when you're fucking this bad of a losing franchise. We're all on Green Bay. Any chance they're going to trip up and lay an egg against Carolina?
I hope so. We're always rooting for a fucking Green Bay loss around here, but no, I think they win fairly easily.
Aaron Jones is back, one more week removed from the injury. He's probably going to get a few more carries this week. We'll see. Cleveland, Houston. I'm on the island. I'm surprised about being on the island in this one. I'm not surprised that we had some Cleveland love, but I was surprised that I honestly I wish Raul was here because I would like to hear his rationale because he's been on the Texans train quite a bit this year. Times when we weren't, right? But he's on Cleveland this week. I just at home, they're scrappy. This feels like a game. It's going to be like 15-13 or something along those lines. This definitely feels like one of those games where whoever wins is going to, it's either going to be Dustin Hopkins or the kicker for the Texans, whose name's eluding me right now. Fairbairn, I believe, is still the kicker there. But one of those two is going to make a field goal with 8 seconds left on the clock, and that's who's going to win. I'll take Houston because they're at home. That's my main reason for picking them.
So I thought the same thing with the defensive struggle. And then when I looked down, I was like, I don't know which one of these teams I pick in the defensive struggle. Because they're both, usually one or the other is a good bet against a different team, but
they're
playing
each other.
So I don't know. And, Vegas has Cleveland -2.5 here on the road. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I went back and forth on this one. I knew somebody was going to be on the island. I didn't figure we'd get a clean sweep. It's too close. These teams are too evenly matched. And, oftentimes I do go with the road team here. I do think Cleveland, in my mind, is slightly better than the Texans. So that's where I landed.
Yeah. Lions, Vikings. I think 2 weeks ago, we would have had a different thought on this until Dobbs fell flat on his face.
Yeah.
Now we've got Nick Mullins. We've got a Vikings team that doesn't seem to have an answer at quarterback, and a Lions team that just hung 42 last week. Home team, maybe, but I don't know. Lions are much better than the Vikings right now, in my opinion.
For me as a fan, I've been saying this. Last week I was going to pick Denver. We didn't end up doing a show. I really was going to pick Denver. I'd seen everything I needed to see from Detroit. I thought, they just.
And then Goff comes out, throws 5 tugs.
They just completely exposed Denver, and it's weird. But between Denver's, I think they started 1-5, right? Yeah. And then they were sitting there with like 7 wins, and everything was going right. Everything was going wrong for the Lions, despite a couple of wins in that stretch where everything was going wrong. Everything was still kind of going wrong. The sky's falling. Yeah. And I've been critical of Detroit all year. I think that Denver win was one of the better wins. And I just don't think Minnesota is very good. Obviously you talked about it a little bit earlier. They had a saving grace with Cousins. Now they're on their 3rd or 4th quarterback at this point, and it's tough. Jefferson's there. That's great. Hawkinson's been playing some decent football this year. They do still struggle to run the football. I don't trust their defense. Goff and the Lions don't play that well against or when they're on the road. That could be a factor. I do think the Lions know that, if we win this game, we win the division.
Yeah.
Let's just go out there and get it done.
Yep.
Because they're going to have Dallas the following week in Dallas, and then they end the season at home against the Vikings. I think the message from Dan and staff this week is going to be let's just go. Let's get it done right now. We don't have to want to rely on being in the road in Dallas or rely on the final week at home. So we'll see. I mean, I do believe they're the better team. I believe they were the better team than Chicago and Green Bay too. But yeah.
Washington and the Jets. I understand why you guys picked Washington. I won't.
We understand why you picked the Jets.
Yeah, I won't the rest of the way. It's ugly football, man. We're not prepared each week. I think the game against Miami was all the evidence anybody needed that Ron is very incompetent, and we will never be prepared for football games when Tyreek Hill is running against single coverage, sometimes against a safety all by himself. That's a problem, and there's no excuses anymore because Ron's running the defense. And I fully expect Zach Wilson to have a good day. I expect Breece Hall to have a good day, and I expect Garrett Wilson to have a good day. So for you daily fantasy players out there, if you want to get some cheap guys because they haven't really been producing all year who should have a good week. Go ahead and play the triplets for the Jets, and you can thank me later by tipping me or something. I don't know.
Listen, if this was my team, I would be in the same spot. Luckily for me, I don't have the honor of having to watch them in depth every week. This was more about the Jets for me, even though they're the home team. I don't trust them. I don't know. Washington kind of pisses me off, man. I'm not as much as they piss you off, obviously. I feel like they have too many things. Like, we shouldn't really be discussing this, right? They should just be able to go beat the Jets
on this roster.
They should just be able to go beat the Jets based off of rosters alone. So
right.
Maybe I'm naive here. I'm just
You're not.
Was my hope.
You're not. They're the more talented roster. We're not prepared for anything the other team does on a weekly basis. Moving on from that depressive state. Seahawks, Titans. Seahawks on the road against the Titans. The Titans are a physical team. I picked Tennessee only because of that Seattle's on the road. They're a different team, home and road. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball the way they did against Philly at home last week against Tennessee. And Tennessee's scrappy. I like Will Levis. I like what he's done since he's took over as a starting quarterback there. I think they've got a little juice out of D-Hop that maybe we didn't expect them to get. And 17-16 game probably, but give me the Titans at home.
I went back and forth on this a little bit. I think there's a little new energy on that Seahawks roster now. I call me crazy. I do think they're a slightly better team. They are on the road. I was kind of back and forth though, so I went with Seattle.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And if this was in Seattle, I pick Seattle. I'll be honest. I'm picking Seattle if they're at home. Jacksonville, Tampa Bay. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that I ended up on the island in this one as well.
You should be surprised. Like, you shouldn't be on the island here.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I want to hear from you. Raul's not here to talk about why he picked Tampa, but why'd you pick Tampa?
I said it a little bit earlier with Jacksonville, right? This is a Jacksonville problem to me. Like, I think that Tampa Bay is resilient enough to beat you. If you leave the door open, they're coming in, right? So, Baker's scrappy. I think scrappy's a good term for that team. And to me, Jacksonville is a team that, like, if you're scrappy against, they're just kind of like, okay, then next time.
That's fair.
I don't trust them. I don't really like what they stand for as a team. And Lawrence with the ankle and the concussion thing now.
Yeah.
I mean, if he doesn't play,
it could
get out of hand.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick them if he was. If you told me today that he wasn't playing, then I would have picked Tampa.
I just think Tampa's the right mindset of a team for me to take down a team like Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is miles ahead of them roster talent.
Yeah.
I would say coaching even. Like, I like Peterson. Something about what Jacksonville, they kind of remind me a little bit of like what the Chargers were last year.
Sure.
Like a team that's very talented, but if you get a scrappy, like hard-nosed team, they could just blow the whole thing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Chicago, Arizona. We're all on the Bears in this, which probably means the Cardinals are going to win. I don't know. I like what I've seen from the Bears in terms of I like what I've seen from Fields. I think Fields is finally starting to settle into being an NFL quarterback. Now, it might be a situation where he has settled in and then they go draft Caleb Williams at number 1 and he ends up on another roster next year. Could. But I like what I've seen from him, and I think he's a guy who can stick in this league, whether it's with Chicago or another team. I think you can win with Justin Fields. I just think he's been dealt a really shitty hand by a really bad roster and a really poorly run organization. Now, is Pace going to be able to turn that around? Maybe they can make that happen, and maybe Eberflus is the answer eventually at coach. But I just feel like I trust Justin Fields against this Cardinals defense. at home, especially. Maybe I would have flip-flopped if this was played in Arizona. I don't know.
I just their last 3 games, the defense has given up like 14 a game.
Yeah.
So to me, that says a lot. Going also with what you're saying, given the praise to Fields, I think this team has, weapons on both sides of the ball, and they can. Listen, I've watched 2 of their games, really in depth when they played the Lions, and both times they looked really fucking sharp against a team that's supposed to be a good team. So I think I might actually have a little more regard for Chicago than a lot of people. But yeah, no, I think that they can get it done, and they're going out there against a team that I don't trust this week, so I think they're going to get it done.
Nice. Dallas, Miami. We're all in Miami, which means Dallas is finally going to win a road game against a team we perceive as a good team. However, I want to hear your thoughts. Miami at home?
Home team. Yeah. Home team.
That was the big thing for me. As a guy who has a soft spot for Buffalo, and I'll be chatting with my dad during this game and the Buffalo game, I hope that the Cowboys win this, right? Because that then opens the door to the path that we talked about earlier for Buffalo, right? To still win the division. They need Dallas or they need Baltimore to knock off Miami in one of these 2 games the next 2 weeks. And, of course, they need to take care of their own business. But I just don't see it, man. I don't see it from Dallas. I think they're a really bad team on the road, and they've shown that. I think that they struggle against teams that we perceive as good teams. We may learn a lot about Miami, though, because you mentioned it earlier. They're one of those teams in that group, right? They don't play well against good teams either, it seems, so far this year. If they lay an egg at home, then maybe it's Denny Green time, right? I meant to mention that during the Cardinals-Bears preview. That was the Denny Green game. They are who we thought they were. But we may see that with Miami here, that they may be who we thought they were. They just aren't that good of a team if Dallas comes into South Florida and knocks them off. I
mean, then Tyreek will be back this week, it looks like. So
he's trending that direction, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big difference maker in your home. Honestly, if this was in Dallas, I was picking Dallas.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it's that close to me, and they both do the same thing. You talked about it, like we don't trust them against good teams. So which one of them is going to fail against the good team?
Yeah, right. Maybe a tie. Maybe it sends it a tie.
Good team, right? We don't
right.
know.
A team we perceive as a good team, right?
We may know a lot more after this week, right?
Yep. We may learn a lot about one of these teams. That's for sure.
Both.
Maybe we learn a lot about both. New England, Denver. I don't know. The turd of the week, probably.
Yeah.
Denver against a really, really bad New England team. I saw a report this past week, or maybe it was Monday, I read it, that said like Robert Kraft has not ruled out Bill Belichick coaching the team next year. Woo!
Okay.
I know he's got 1 year left on the deal, and maybe that's a ploy to get some team to trade for him, because that's, in the end, if you can trade a coach for draft picks, that's probably a huge win. But especially like a washed-up coach like Bill Belichick, like it's over for him. I can't imagine a team trading to go get him. Like, that's crazy.
Speaking about coaches, it's over for. Sean Payton's coaching in this game.
Yeah.
It was just starting to look okay for him. He like, I never saw him treat Drew Brees the way he treats Russell Wilson in front of people.
In the public eye.
I don't know what the thought is behind that.
I think he went to TV and like realized like, oh, cameras are on and I can just be an asshole.
I don't get it.
He had that year where he's on TV.
It's bad. It's bad coaching. That's bad coaching. And I hate to sit here behind this screen and tell Sean Payton that he's doing a bad job coaching, but that's bad coaching. You can't do that.
It's bad.
I mean, this is a Super Bowl fucking champion, whether you like it or not. You can't speak to him like that. Listen, legendary cornball, but you can't speak to him like that.
Legendary cornball.
You can't, though.
The goat of cornball.
That just goes down the line to the rest of the fucking team. Yep. So now players who are on the verge think that they can do it too.
Yep.
And other players who sympathize with Russ are like, oh, well, that's
What
fucked
is
up.
going
Am I
on?
next? You know, shit like that. Like, that to me creates like division you can't have.
Yep. Really bad. Kansas City of Vegas. Vegas coming off the 63-21 shellacking of the Chargers. Kansas City at home. Kansas City needing to kind of lick their wounds as we get down the stretch here and become the team they want to be when January comes around. Can you see the Raiders knocking them off?
I don't think so. I mean, KC's getting 10 points too. 10 points. Imagine you score 60 something last week
And you're
and
a 10-point dog.
Yeah. It's a cruel world, man.
That's tough.
I think, you know, if KC's going to continue to like, if they're going to turn this ship around now, right? Like they did it. They first step was last week against New England. Now they have to do it in division against another bad team. And yeah, I think they get it done.
Yeah, I agree. Giants, Eagles. I think I'm just being an asshole here. Honestly.
I think you are too.
I think I'm just being Listen, I'm really out on the Eagles, and that's the point that I wanted to make here. I'll take the L here. I'm gonna miss this one.
Point proven.
Yeah.
But I have no explanation for this game.
I don't trust Philly. I think they're on the brink of being what we might consider an average at best team. They look like shit, dude. They look like shit. They've looked like shit in wins all year. They look like real bad shit in some of their losses down the stretch here. They got bullied in a couple of these games. They got bullied against Buffalo and got bailed out by the fucking Zebras. Like, they should be on like a 4-game losing streak right now. And it's not good football from them right now. That loss against Seattle last night, not good. Not good.
Despite that, I think they're still too good to lose to the Giants.
They're better than the Giants. They're better than the Giants. I'm just being an asshole. Fully self-aware on that one.
Everybody knew that.
Finish out the week with Baltimore and San Francisco. This is a matchup of titans, basically.
Yeah.
Right. This is the most balanced team in the AFC against the most balanced team in the NFC. I think we've sung the praises of both of these teams plenty throughout this show. How much does home field play into your choice here of San Francisco over Baltimore? Or do you think that San Francisco is that much the best team in the NFL?
I would have picked them in Baltimore.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Again,
I can't speak for Raul, but I know I would have as well.
Right. No disrespect to Baltimore. I mean, the line's only 5.5 to San Fran. So, I mean, that's awesome. I think at this point, I'm picking San Fran no matter what every week. So, you know, Baltimore does fall into that category a little bit, unfortunately for them. But awesome, like fucking Merry Christmas. So pretty good Christmas
Day game. We get Baltimore
because the other ones ain't shit.
No.
I'll be watching the Celtics game.
Yeah.
Before that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is our Christmas present. Baltimore and San Francisco for sure. All right, Bob. Well, hey, listen, Raul can't be too mad. We kept it under 2 hours.
Just fucking barely.
Just barely.
He's gonna say that too. So.
He is too.
Listen, he'll be in the recap like an hour and 26 in. And he's gonna be like cursing. Yeah.
You guys just finished week 15.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, for Raul, who couldn't be here, and Andy, and the rest of us here at Backyard Sports, this has been our Week 15 roundup of the NFL, brought to you as part of Backyard Blitz. We are out.